Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Sergio Muro, and today we're here at RBL1 Live. We have a great guest today talking about financial literacy, Angel Rich. She is vice chair of the DC Government Financial Literacy Council. She's also founder and CEO of The Wealth Factory. Thanks for joining us today.
Absolutely. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, excited to welcome a CEO and leader in the DC ecosystem. We've been meaning to highlight more leaders from that space. To kick it off, can you share a little bit more about what is the DC Government Financial Literacy Council?
Sure. So the DC Financial Literacy Council was established in 2014 after the city saw a need to gather and promote more financial literacy resources. We are happy to be the overseers of sort of what happens inside of community organizations, schools, prisons, anything that the government sort of touches. We oversee the financial literacy instruction. Uniquely in DC, we also have GSA as well as 480 government agencies. So we also get to kind of touch those a little bit as well.
That's great. And how did you first get involved in the council?
Well, I actually helped push for the creation of it.
That's great.
And from the day that they created it, I was asking to be a part of it. I actually sat in on the meetings very early on as kind of just a guest. And then after a few years, the mayor went ahead and appointed me commissioner, and now they have now elected me vice chair.
That's great. And I'm sure some of your work in the Wealth Factory helped helped you for that role. Can you share a little bit more about since you're CEO of the Wealth Factory, what is the Wealth Factory?
Absolutely. So the Wealth Factory designs financial literacy, education, technology games. We walk people through birth to retirement in 12 interactive modules of personal finance, which includes our interactive online games, our fintech products, as well as our curriculum. And we've already been named the best financial literacy product in the country by the White House, as well as it's been adopted with the Department of Education Family Engagement Policies.
Great. So what type of I know you've you've launched it for almost 8 years now, over 7 years. Can you talk about the journey? What inspired you to start it, and how has it evolved since you've created it?
Yeah, so I sort of had a few different moments of inspiration along my life. First, starting when I was 6 years old, I received a vision from God as to focus on financial literacy. I didn't really know the actual term, but I knew that I was going to dedicate my life to helping to eradicate poverty. Then when I was in college, I sort of got my second spark after walking into the library and a group of people asking me to lead them in a Goldman Sachs portfolio challenge. I had no clue about the stock market at the time, but after they showed me the market and I did some regression analysis, we ended up winning first place. And that was when I actually came up with the idea for the company. I felt as though not just stock, but it needed to be everything. People needed to have some type of gain to be able to live out their financial life without losing their money. And then you fast forward, I go off and work at Prudential for 3 years and conduct a bunch of financial experience studies. And I take a trip to Africa and I meet a little boy in a Wharton t-shirt after just being offered a full ride to Wharton, having just made the company $6 billion. And they wouldn't fund a mission trip for my church. So I went off to Africa anyway with my church, and I met a little boy in this Wharton t-shirt. And after seeing him for 3 weeks, that was sort of the final decision for me to quit my job, because I felt like no matter how smart this little boy became, he probably would never be able to actually truly go to Wharton. Maybe never even leave Kenya.
What and in seeing that, what can you share some of the next steps of what, like, how are you engaging with people like that boy in Kenya now?
Oh, that is such a beautiful question. All day today, actually, I've been researching the African market. Fast forward, our company is now in 60 countries in 21 different languages. I was named one of the top 5 most influential people in the world of the African diaspora by the United Nations, overseeing business and innovation. So I've connected with almost every African president. I have had discussions with certain African presidents to help promote technology in Africa and have actually been behind the scenes a large part of that movement in Africa. And we also have the organization called Black Tech Matters that focuses on the African diaspora and connecting Blacks and Africans with STEM companies for employment as well as entrepreneurship opportunities and access to capital. Everyone can visit blacktechmatters.co and join and subscribe.
Can you share a little bit more of what it, and I know several investors that are really passionate about building stronger ties with the continent. In your opinion, looking at the entrepreneurial ecosystem, what are some ways we can do that in helping in building stronger ties, identifying companies that are investment ready for investors in the U.S.
Yeah, that's exactly why I built Black Tech Matters. I wanted to help make the process easier for companies to be able to find talent as well as companies to invest in. Oftentimes, you hear that the search and the pipeline is the difficult part. Well, what we're doing is we're aligning people with certain STEM skills, as well as people that have, I'm not going to say top notch, but have fundable companies where they've raised at least $100,000 and they are at a position to receive more capital, whether or not that's seed capital or Series A capital. And then we're breaking them out into different segments. So I was just having a conversation earlier, not to transition too much, but with everything that's going on with George Floyd, I really do feel as though the unification of Black America, as well as the African continent, will come from initiatives like this with Black Tech Matters, where you have companies that have already put money into our fund. We're raising a $30 million fund. So we want the companies to be inspired to put money into our fund, and then we leverage that money to be able to provide actual investments into formidable Black tech companies, as well as actually training people on skills so they're not managed out after 2 or 3 years of working in these STEM companies. I see those as the 2 biggest issues that we're having, and it seems to boil down to a bottleneck of funding.
And in raising your fund, what's going to be your focus area? Are you investing in founders on the continent, in the U.S., both? Like, what are there certain industries of focus? If you could share more about your thesis there.
Yes. So we're actually kind of looking at it like a third and a third, a third and a third. So heavily kind of focusing on the U.S. as well as focusing on the African market, as well as the rest of the diaspora across the world, because we're not just limited to 2 continents. We're also looking at it from a stage perspective, breaking that out into early stage, medium stage, late stage, and we have a slice of about 10% for real estate, which has actually been going really well. I won't speak numbers, so that's been going really well. We are potentially even looking into purchasing a town where we can almost have like a Black Tech Matters town of some sort, where people can be trained on financial literacy, entrepreneurship. They can come and do coding and be able to build their products and all different type of things. What we're essentially doing is building an ecosystem. We've been traveling around the country to different HBCUs for the past 3 years, inspiring entrepreneurship and tech inclusion on the different campuses. We've traveled to Africa, in Egypt, Kenya, and Uganda. And so I could go on and on.
No, that's interesting that you're creating the center of that ecosystem. Where can you say more about that? Where do you plan for it to be physically? and what do you want to be a part of this community, and how far along are you?
Yeah, so I was blessed to not only be born in the nation's capital, but sort of the world's capital, and also at the same time, Chocolate City. So everything I need is pretty much right here in my city. I have sort of the top Black organizations that's been around since the beginning, the NAACPs and all of that. I have all of the international embassies right here, as well as I have the American government. So we actually really see, and trust me, I've scoured the earth because I didn't want to be biased. But truly, we see DC as the center hub for the international marketplace. In terms of where we plan to establish the town, again, I won't speak numbers, but we're in the middle of raising for that right now this week. And we are looking at various small towns that we will be able to purchase that are up for sale right now.
And taking a step back and looking at no, that's amazing. I would love for when you're ready to share more about the town. That sounds like a amazing project. What can you share more of? What elements do you want a part of that town or that ecosystem? Even though do you intend for it to be in close proximity to DC?
That really kind of depends on the numbers. The one that we're looking at right now is in Georgia, but there's another one that's in Connecticut as well. So it really kind of depends on more so transportation logistics, I would say. We've made it really simple for people to invest. We have lowered the barometer down to $100 so that people anywhere and everywhere can come in and invest. And we also set it up through PayPal so we can eliminate the fees that typically happens. So people can go to paypal.me/wealthylife. The information right now is on my Facebook page, but we're working on spinning it out into a fund as well as an entire sort of website. But we're not going to spend too much time on building out a website. It'd probably just be like a landing page of some kind. So that's pretty much where we kind of see the future going in terms of people coming together and collaborating for a common good. You know, we watched Obama do it with the election at $4. There's a gentleman named Jay Morrison. He was able to bring people together. I think his minimum was $500, and he ended up raising 40 million. So we're kind of almost testing the waters here in the African diaspora. Like, is this the moment where we can come together at such a low barometer amount? And if 20,000 people come in at $100, that's $2 million. So that's around the amount that we're looking at to purchase the town at. And overall, again, that's a slither of the overall Black Tech Matters Fund, which is 30 million in total. But we feel as though this real estate piece is an essential component just to even just have a safe space for Black tech.
And can you speak a little bit more when you say and going back to the current environment, with the protests and talking about how we address institutional racism? Can you talk more about what in creating a Black Tech Hub, what unique elements do you intend to be a part of it to better support Black entrepreneurs and investors?
The main thing that comes to my head is understanding, empathy, intelligent empathy. Not, oh, I feel sorry for you because we share the same race, but I understand why it's taking you 5 years to raise $1 million on $1 billion product because you're Black. So it's almost a common understanding. One of the reasons I created it, to kind of take you back into history a little bit, was in 2016. It was only 26 Black people at South by Southwest gathered. We secretly, the top people, we gathered in one room. We took a very historic picture that we kind of called the Harlem Renaissance moment, because back in the day, they took a picture in front of the Harlem Renaissance and it had like Langston Hughes and all type of famous people in it, and nobody knew who they were at the time. But when we were gathered in this room together, it was the first time that Black tech entrepreneurs from across the country had gathered together in one room. We each thought that, you know, we had one or two in DC, we had one or two in Atlanta, probably about maybe 10 in California. And so it was kind of this pockets of, oh, it's this another Black tech entrepreneur. So when we gathered together in this room, we had this thing called Founders Therapy, which was hosted by Joey Womack and Jewel Burks. And we discovered after about an hour or two of being together that we all had the exact same problem. And so as we're sitting together, and this guy worked at Microsoft and that guy worked at, you know, Google or whatever, it's a room full of geniuses. And we're recognizing each other as geniuses. And each story is the exact same. And so we slowly concluded, like, we're being discriminated against. And it had not really occurred to us before that. At least it didn't occur to me. I'll speak for myself. Because we were so isolated. So after that, I started an email chain called Chocolate Innovators, which was the beginning of sort of this collaboration of the Black tech entrepreneurs across the country coming together. And I, at the time, had, for the most part, more notoriety than majority of the Black tech entrepreneurs. And with me being in DC, I was getting invited into a lot of rooms that other people weren't getting invited into. So I created the secret email chain so that I could let people know all these secret rooms that I was being invited into. And that outside of California was the birth of the Black tech movement across the country. From there, several other organizations popped up in different cities. Other email chains have formed, other groups have formed. I had a call earlier today where I'm now calling for us to come together once again. All the different sort of Black tech organizations, I would like us to collaborate together, because I'm just always about coming together and collaborating. Us being divided in any fashion, as we've started to scale, and you know, we have people that have raised 14 million and 20 million and things like that at this point, which for our counterparts is nothing, but for us, that's the highest that we've raised in our community. We have a young lady that's raised 14 million, and I think the guy also raised 14 million. So our ceiling, oh no, just today, a girl came out with 15 million from Andreessen Horowitz. Actually, just today, I got the email today from the secret email chain. So now the highest that a Black founder has raised is 15 million that I'm aware of in this post startup America environment.
And moving to a little bit like in building this community and looking forward and seeing what are the elements of what we have to do. I know, you know, you mentioned funding and creating more community, but what are some other actions that people could take now to, you know, better move the Black community forward?
Okay, I'm going to be really honest, but I'm not going to say any names. Recently, we had a major company, let's call it a Fortune 50 company, that was going to sponsor our entire Black Tech Matters tour. However, we had, I'll say, we had Cardi B potentially lined up to perform for us, but the budget that they were providing would not amount for Cardi B. And Cardi B, I love Cardi B. I requested Cardi B. Her being there would have taken up majority of the budget. I'm bringing this up to say that we should not have to integrate entertainment in order to receive support and sponsorship. And I'm the first tech entrepreneur on Breakfast Club. It wasn't because I wanted to be famous. It was because I saw it as a necessity. I did not see another way to be able to grab people's attention in the way that an entertainment platform could. And I just really don't think that that's fair. You know, when we're dealing with our counterparts, they get support from Inc. magazine and Fast Company and all these different places just because they have a tech company. For us, we some type of way have to be cool along with it. We have to turn it into a cultural fest. We have to bring out body paint and singers and rappers and DJs and da 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 da. And yeah, that's a part of our culture. But to not fund us without that, to not sponsor our events without that is a little problematic for me. I pretty much can't think of any Black event that's just normal. Like today, I got tickets to Developer Week. There's no Black event like that. That's just straight up, you just come and learn. We can't do that. We got to throw a party at the end. You know, so I think that just allowing us to just be nerds, just be intelligent, just have tech companies and just support that as what it is, you know, without having put us through a whole bunch of hoops. Just basically just treat us equal. Just treat us like you would treat our counterparts.
And for that, do you think it, in terms of a mix, right? Is part of it culture and part of it getting out the word and involving the masses, or or you're saying that the sponsors wouldn't come on if you didn't position it that way? Is that what you're saying?
No, the sponsor literally dropped us because what they were trying to pay for, Cardi B's budget is double that, which I respect. Shout out to Cardi B. But it's so they were like, oh, well, we can't fund it. Like this, while I would have died to have Cardi B there, it's not about Cardi B. It's about Black tech. And we just felt as though Cardi B would be a great face for it, because I really do feel as though she's very intelligent, that people just, I really do feel like she's intelligent and would be a great face for it. So, but to not do it as a result of her not being there, I think it's problematic.
Understand. Got it. And so to double back also on I want to shift gears and allow time for you to talk about some of the work you've published. One being the financial empowerment of youth research study, also the author of The History of the Black Dollar. I know most recently you also published a book regarding financial literacy and wealth building. So can you share a little bit more about for first the history of the Black Dollar?
Yeah, so the history of Black Dollar for sure is my baby. I actually wrote it in 30 days between midnight and 5 a.m. because I didn't want to take away from my company. But I just started to realize, I started to ask myself, why were Black people treated so differently than Jewish people? I mean, you can't talk bad about a Jewish person in America. There is a Holocaust museum in almost every city in America, if not two. So I started thinking, and I said, I would boil that down to the Diary of Anne Frank. Every student in America has to read the Diary of Anne Frank. So you feel empathetic towards her. You feel her hiding in the attic. You feel the people coming after her. You have lived that experience. I probably could write the whole book over if I needed to. Now tell me a book that is mandated in America that's about the child of a slave, or even Jim Crow, or even civil rights, or even the 90s. It does not exist.
Mm-hmm.
So how can we expect to be on the same page if we're not reading from the same book? So not only do we have our counterparts that don't know our history, our own people don't know our history. It's a complete hodgepodge depending on what state you grew up in. So my dying goal, if I achieve nothing else, is to get this book mandated in every school across America. And we've been making a lot of headways with it. The state of Illinois did a research study on it for my good friend Star Cunningham, who's also a unicorn. And they found that there was no other book like it. And if there had been a book written like it, it wasn't written in the last 10 years. And it was not written from an unbiased perspective. Not even the last 10 years. They said this century. It was not written in the last 20 years. And it wasn't written from an unbiased perspective. So as a researcher, I felt as though the facts alone were enough. I do feel as though there are a lot of not autobiographies, But there are a lot of history books that are kind of biased. You know, they want you to feel a certain type of way about the history. I don't feel as though any fluff is needed whatsoever. The pure facts of our history alone speak for themselves. And I just want everyone to be educated on what has happened. Look at how the country has turned to so much unrest after being able to see this video of George Floyd. Imagine if they understood the history that we've been dealing with since 1619. I had a conversation with a lady recently, and she was being negative. And she was saying, why do Black people always say 400 years? The country didn't start to 1776. And I said, oh, poor lady. Actually, Virginia started in 1619. And upon that starting, there was slavery. So we've actually been here since before the country was even revolutionized. So it's a very deep history that I just find people just don't know. And they dismiss a lot of things out of just a lack of history.
I love that. Especially the noble cause and very actionable, right? Taking the history of the black dollar and integrate that into the school system, so we have a base for that. So thank you for sharing that as well. So tell people to check out the history of the black dollar. Also wanted some time for you to talk about the Wealthy Family Financial Literacy textbook that you've created and what inspired it, and if you can share more.
Yeah, so all of my books are available on Amazon as well as Barnes and Noble, and they've already been approved by the school system on Ingram Sparks, and they are already integrated in K-12 schools as well as universities. So when it came to the textbook, after having such a successful game and so many different pilot studies and actual what I would say integrations with academic settings where we actually go into the schools and implement the curriculum. So many schools were begging us for this financial literacy textbook. What's interesting about 2020, the great 2020, is that for the first time, 34 states mandated financial literacy this year. At the exact same time, we had the coronavirus, which expedited the online learning environment. So we actually have this book in the ebook version as well. So we're now receiving all type of contracts and different things like that to supply financial literacy online learning, which was the entire goal of the company. And I'm so proud of this textbook and that it's finally out on the market for schools everywhere to be able to use.
Great. And I appreciate your, a little bit more how you shared your story and the change that you think needs to happen. Can you, taking a step back and looking at your place in DC, can you talk about what you believe makes the DC startup ecosystem unique and its place in the U.S.?
I've never had that question before, but what comes to mind initially is realness and scrappiness. And I was actually featured in the Washington Post 5 years ago because I was one of the first people in DC, no, one of the first people in the country to hire interns out of like recent graduates and students to come work for the startup. People thought I was nuts at first. You know, again, you're looking at our counterparts that are able to write something on a napkin, go get $2 or $3 million, and then just hire whatever staff they want to. Meanwhile, and the thought process is, if you have a good company, you'll get funded. It doesn't work like that in the Black community. So while you might have $1 billion idea, while you might be named the next Steve Jobs and have all the accolades to go along with it, it might take you a very long time to actually raise your money. So I couldn't afford to go out and just straight hire people. So instead, I offered them internships and job offer letters. It had never been done before. And that is kind of, and then after that, 1776 started doing it, and it became a model across the country. But I literally was like one of the first people doing that. And that's why they put me in the Washington Post for it. So I kind of feel as though that story is what DC is all about. Like, we don't just sit back and say, oh, we don't have money for employees. No, we're going to figure out a way to get some employees and make it a win-win situation for the employees. I had employees that were able to go off and work at Oracle after being with me for 3 months when they couldn't find a job for a year before that. One even went off and proposed to his girlfriend. So yeah, it was kind of cool. And so being able to have such immense impact off of something so little, that's DC.
I love it. Yep. And yeah, definitely. I used to live in DC, and definitely that culture of impact reigns true. Um, and before we, it was an honor hearing more about, the Wealth Factory. Anything else you would like to share with, with the other investors and founders that are listening in at this time?
Well, sure. I'll just share that we are now on our Series A. We are currently raising $5 million. I'm not going to say any names, but a very big phone company that most of us use has already agreed to back us. We're just gearing up to get a lead now. So if anybody's interested in leading our round or coming in, definitely contact us. GetWealthyLife.com, and you can email us at info@getwealthylife.com.
Well, thank you very much. This is Angel Rich, founder and CEO of the Wealth Factory, also vice chair of the DC Government Financial Literacy Council. Thanks for joining us today. And for all those watching, this was Rebel One Live. Come listen to other founders and innovators and investors every Tuesday and Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern. So thanks again, Angel.